All right, here goes. Let me give you a little bit of context, as I always do. Now, for those of you who've been listening to HR Debatable before, you may know that we have already talked about the fact that HR, especially since 2020, has been made responsible for many big topics within organizations. So think, for example, of creating a hybrid or remote work policy and everything related to that. Think also about employee engagement, employee well-being, and DEIB, just to name a few examples. Employee onboarding is another example of a big topic that is often considered as HR's responsibility. And a rather big responsibility too, since, as we've also just heard in the first debate, but it's during that onboarding period that the foundation of the employee-employer relationship is created. So it quite literally makes or breaks an employee's decision to stay with or to leave the organization. According to Bamboo HR, companies have on average 44 days to influence a new hire's long-term retention. Apparently, it takes people less than 6 weeks to make up their minds about whether or not they're staying with the company. Like I said, a pretty big responsibility to carry for HR. But how much sense does it make to say HR is in charge of this? How often do new hires interact with HR during their onboarding? Especially if many of the admin and other tasks are automated. Wouldn't it make much more sense to have someone else, for instance, the hiring manager, as the main responsible for the new team members' onboarding? As Gallup puts it in their view on creating an excellent onboarding journey, onboarding should be a journey that employees take with their manager and team. So perhaps it's time for HR to reconsider some of its responsibilities and start setting some boundaries, for example, by making employee onboarding a shared responsibility. And all of this brings me to our second statement of today. The hiring manager is responsible for employee onboarding, not HR. All right, this time I'll start with you, Christian. Do you vote yes or do you vote no? The hiring manager is responsible for onboarding.
Can I change the question? I think the question is yes. That is where the connection needs to happen. That's where you need to feel this is the person responsible for me. This is where I belong. This is the person facilitating my entry into the team and all of that stuff. But what I've seen.
I'm going to stop you for a second here with the but. So yes, I say yes, but. All right, Nick. So what do you vote on this one?
I agree with Christian on this one again. I do think that the hiring manager should be the one responsible.
All right, nice. Okay, Christian, yes, we are going to get to the but part now of the answer.
You got me started. No, so I think that you don't even need to go to a large organization, just a medium-sized organization. What I've seen is that when you want efficiency out of your onboarding in the organization, the quality of the onboarding and the standardization of the onboarding solution is the key. And that means if you leave that to individual managers, you won't get the benefits. And I've seen too much of that. I've worked a lot in the healthcare sector in Denmark, where you have a lot of autonomy down through the organizational lines, and that just gives chaos. It gives no quality, it gives no standards, it gets no this is the boundaries, or this is the framework that we work with. You don't get that. So a situation where you provide HR with a bit more power so that they can actually tell the onboarding manager, you don't need to do exactly this and this and this, but this is the framework you have to work with it. So one of the clients I work with, they invented a term called intelligent standards, so that you standardize in an intelligent way. And one of the standards, there were actually a couple of them. One of them was your onboarding program, dear manager, has to last for 9 months. And your onboarding you have to visualize your onboarding program once a year to get it approved. And part of it can easily be the overall organizational onboarding program, but you provide your own stuff. Now, that kind of collaboration, I think, works well, but you need to provide HR with a bit more power to make it work.
All right. Thank you very much. Nick, let's go to you.
Yeah, I think I agree with Christian. And maybe just to take a step back and go to the original dilemma of why HR feels the need to own onboarding, is it seems like HR owns the entire employee experience. And I brought a couple of statistics here from Brandon Hall Group that says that if you have a structured onboarding process, you will improve retention by 82% and productivity by over 70%. So it's clear that, and also from your introduction, Ili, that the onboarding plays a huge role in the overall employee experience, which would make sense why HR doesn't want to let go and why they feel I have to take care of this, because otherwise my whole employee experience could be ruined and I could lose my best people. But at the same time, also to Christian's point, we need to be realistic about how much impact does HR actually have during the onboarding period. So if you look at the time the manager spends with their employee in the onboarding, if you look at their ability to train their new employees and have domain knowledge and skill specific knowledge for that role, if you look at the best predictor of how loyal an employee is going to be has nothing to do with HR. It's based on their relationship with the direct manager. That is the best predicator of how loyal an employee is going to be. So all of these metrics are telling us that it's the manager who actually holds the key to a successful onboarding, and by that to a good start for the employee experience. But still, as HR, it's hard to let go. And I think the key point here is that it doesn't mean that HR shouldn't be part of the onboarding. It's what part should they be? Where should they take part in the onboarding? And maybe the biggest role that HR could have here is to enable the managers and provide them the training and provide them the resources and provide them the structure to be able to then, as we said before, locally on the ground level, actually build a relationship and onboard your new hire, so that we get both at the same time. So we get this standardization, intelligent standardization, as Christian said, on the high level of this is the vision, this is what onboarding should be, and this is how you can do it next time you're hiring a new person, and then being that support and that training for the managers who will then deploy the onboarding program. I think that's how we can get both and get one task off the HR's to-do list, because it's quite overflowing at the moment, and maybe this is an easy one that we can get to managers.
Yeah, I think that seems to make sense. I think what I'm hearing from both of you here is that I do think that HR has an important role to play in the onboarding, right? Because there are, whether we like it or not, there is a lot of admin that needs to get out of the way. There is also regulations that need to be taken into account when onboarding new hires. So, and I do think that both traditionally, but also still today, I think it makes sense that these are things that HR needs to keep an eye on, and HR also needs to make sure that these get done. So in that regard, I guess it makes sense for HR to still play a role. I do like what both of you are saying in a way about facilitating managers and equipping them with everything they need to be able to properly onboard their new hires. However, realistically speaking, because this is something else that I've noticed over the past few years, we are also giving managers more and more tasks, right? Managers today need also to be people's coaches. Managers need to also be taking care of the well-being of the people in their team, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So how realistic is it really for us to say that it's the hiring manager that needs to play the main part in onboarding people? How much time do they actually have for that? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Christian, let's go first with you.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's totally unrealistic to give them more tasks, the managers. So even though we agree that's where it needs to go, I think that is definitely a valid argument. Look, when HR can easily take off the admin part, there's no value coming from the manager doing that part. I don't think that's the contribution that the manager makes. The big headlines around what's the company story, what's the company strategy, some of that can easily be communicated by other people than the local manager. The translation needs to be done there, but I think that is a reasonable task and also realistic to place there. I do also believe that trying to look at onboarding not just as a program, but really as a skill, it also makes it possible for you to all of a sudden see that the team has resources that can be used in the onboarding process. So a lot can actually, if the manager again is helped to do that, and you get a bit specific on what are the skills you need then to be able to onboard a new person in your team, to tell the good stories about why we're working here, why we like to be here, and so on. If you can push that into the organization, again, it becomes a bit more realistic. So a manager should have time to have that one conversation after 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, whatever that frequency is. And I think also when they realize the calculation of how much it costs for them if the onboarding is not successful, they start doing it. But of course, everyday operations take all their time, and they're focused like it does for all of us.
Thank you. I do like what you say there as well about for the manager to think about the team as well as one of the resources. And that basically ties back to what the Gallup report also said, that onboarding is a journey that an employee takes with manager and the team. So I like that. And I think this could have so many benefits, right? Ideally, if people were going to do this, and I'm sure that some companies already do this, it's good for everything, right? For the team spirit, for the relationship building that we talked about during the first debate. So that could be really, really beneficial for everybody involved, I guess. Nick, sorry, I'm talking too much. Let's hear it from you.
No, you're good. You're good. I agree. And I agree. I like what Christian's saying about that being a skill. In terms of can managers do it? Do they have time or not? I think that's the job. You want to be a people leader. That's the job. You're going to hire people. You need to know how to hire. You're going to onboard people. You're going to need to know how to onboard. So I think we need to also think about manager onboarding. So once I become a manager, I need to be onboarded into the manager role. And one of the things that I need to learn is to gain this onboarding skill, which after I learn it once, I'm going to know it for the rest of my career. So it's not like this huge thing. So once I know how to do it once, it becomes second nature and I can do it always. And maybe one more thing that I would add is for this debate, I wouldn't look at it, is it HR or is it manager, like an either or? I would look at it as the onboarding team. So who are all the people in the organization who are contributing to onboarding our new hire? And maybe that's HR, maybe that's someone from IT, maybe that's the hiring manager, maybe that's the team. So all of these stakeholders are going to contribute to us onboarding this new employee. The question is who owns the KPI and who is responsible to make sure that the team is coordinated, that all the resources are coordinated, and that everything is going according to plan. And I would put that on the manager because it's their new hire and because everything we said before, I think they should own the KPI, but HR definitely has a role to play. The team definitely has a role to play. And I think onboarding is more of a team sport than an individual sport.
Nice. I like that. Good point as well about the manager onboarding, something that I can imagine sometimes or maybe often is missing and onboarding as a skill. Yeah. So Christian, maybe you want to say something about that.
Continuing thing to that, because I did a research in an organization, quite a big organization, 2 months ago. And so we measured the onboarding of the managers and tried to get some data out of that a lot of different things came out of that. So overall, I think we really realized that onboarding a manager is not just different, but so different from onboarding an employee. And really looking into that discipline it's not done so many places. So that was a huge experience. But a funny thing was that we had focus groups and we asked the managers who onboarded you, and nobody could answer. They didn't know. So some said, I think maybe it was HR. Some said, I think it was my manager. No, I think it was my leadership team. Nobody could answer like this was the person. So again, if we think about role modeling and stuff like that, I think understanding the onboarding of managers is a huge thing, not just the transitions, but also when we bring people in from the outside.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to talk about this so much longer, but we have to move on, I guess. Nick, is there anything that you would like to say in addition to this?
No, I think we're good for this one.
But I do think that for me personally, the biggest takeaway from this one, there's two things I would say. One, indeed, manager onboarding. I think this is something that is, well, from what I hear from you and also from you, Nick, and from Christian with the research that you've done, something that is massively forgotten about, it seems. So that's a big one. And I also think the big one is the onboarding team, because it's not one person or one department being responsible for it, but it's like a team thing. However, there should be one person, of course, as Nick mentioned, that should own the KPI. So I think these are two big takeaways from this one.